So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, and well handed over after you've pressed record. So you managed to escape the whole prelim. So good morning, everybody. I'm Catherine Betley, as Sally said. I am the Managing Director of GriefChat, and I do know some of you who are present today, so it's nice to not see any faces because I can't actually see you. But it's nice to know that there are some familiar people out there. As Sally said, if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to pop them in the chat box. I will try to keep my eye on it, probably badly as usual, but I will, and certainly try and give at least 5 minutes towards the end of the session, so that if anyone has any burning questions that haven't been covered, then we can have a look at those then. So what I shall do now is share my screen, and hopefully the magic of technology will work. Doesn't always, but you know, we'll do our best. So if for whatever reason you cannot see that now, wave frantically. I'm just trying to pop the chat box as well over in the
I can see it.
Yeah, can you see the chat box there as well, Sal?
Yeah, I'll keep the chat box open.
Okay, that's fine.
And I can keep an eye on it for you.
Perfect, thank you very much. So this session is a very brief car crash session, hopefully not too much car crash, but a crash through GriefChat for Much Loved Funeral Partners. And we've had a partnership with Much Loved now for a couple of years at least, whereby people who have an optimum partnership with Much Loved are then, as a benefit of that, entitled to use GriefChat to support their bereaved customers, service users, clients, whatever it is that you prefer to call them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the background to Much Loved and what we do and how we do it, and what it is you can get out of this partnership. If my screen will change. So those of you who know me will already know the story. Essentially, we set up GriefChat best part of 5 years ago now, and it came out of a very long-standing frustration. So I have been involved in bereavement care services since 2001. Spent quite a lot of time working for Cruise Bereavement Care, became increasingly frustrated at the length of time that it took us to connect a grieving person with a bereavement counsellor. On any different platform, really, whether it was over the telephone or face-to-face or by email. We know there are so many bereaved people out there who are looking for a little bit of extra support. And that's not to say that everybody needs counselling, because they don't. But most people benefit from some advice, some information, a little bit of reassurance that they're not going mad. And really that's what GriefChat was designed to do. You'll have to excuse my Labrador, who's having a dream underneath me at the minute. So give him a tickle and wake him up. So if you're wondering what the strange noises are, that would be my dog under the desk. So essentially we founded GriefChat to try to transform access to bereavement care. I always say, because I'm a bit of a 90s chick, if you remember the James song, Born of Frustration, that we couldn't connect people, is when I find the courage to ask for support as a grieving person, that's when I need it, not when we can get around to offering it, or when access is available, or when, you know, we finish playing phone tag for a few weeks with somebody. Actually, at the time that I pluck up the courage to say, I'm struggling and I need some help, that's when people really do deserve to get that help, whatever that looks like. And we know the last couple of years have been tough, and we know there are many, many more bereaved people out there, and extrapolating an increased death rate, obviously, it means there are more bereaved people out there. So we say roughly at the moment, maybe 3 million people over the last few years, or 3 million currently grieving people. And there's no time limit to grief either. So if you have 500, 600,000 deaths a year, if you extrapolate that to 2, 3, 4 bereaved people, and so on and so forth, but there's no time limit to this. So we find on GriefChat that people come to talk to us before a death, which is absolutely fine when they're anticipating that grief. They come to us very soon after someone's died to just check in and say, you know, am I doing this right? Am I meant to feel this way? Are these thoughts kind of normal? What's going on here? And then they also come to us 10, 15, 20 years down the line, when sometimes maybe there's been another death or another bereavement that has triggered a prior loss that perhaps at the time wasn't dealt with, or actually just it's kind of raised some issues for people that they'd like to deal with. And our vision really at GriefChat is that every bereaved person anywhere in the world can access timely and professional bereavement care. And that's what we've been working hard to achieve. There's still a lot to do. Let's talk a little bit about prevalence, really. So we have 60 million people a year die. If each of those people leave 3 significantly bereaved people, that's an awful lot of grieving people across the world, let alone in the UK. And while GriefChat was set up to work predominantly with people from the UK, we have made our access globally open to anybody, really, so that anybody who at the moment can type in English, who can come and chat to one of our counsellors. We are looking to expand our language access across the next, but certainly with things like the Ukrainian war, we were asked to help with that, and we didn't have that language translation capability. So we're adopting a system fairly soon that will give us 120 language translation capability. So that will be helpful, not perfect, but helpful. The UK National Institute of Clinical Excellence suggests that maybe 15 or 20% of people will require, I say, specialist bereavement support. And most of it is not specialist, and you will know this. A good bit of common sense, a good bit of reassurance, and a listening ear is what most of us need at that point, very soon after a loss. But some people do struggle as they go through their grief journey. And some of those people very definitely require a little bit of extra support. And some people require professional bereavement care. And GriefChat really was, we set it up with a view to being simple to access, very quick in terms of our response times. It's not there for ongoing support, and it's not therapeutic counselling as such. It's the opportunity to have those conversations with the counsellor. So when people come to talk to us and they say, I can't keep telling my family this stuff, or actually I just want to tell it, I want to tell a story to somebody who's not heard it before, or I want to check out what I'm thinking to somebody who's got some insight into what might be going on for me. Really, that's what GriefChat is there for. It's not for long-term relationships, although we do offer longer-term counselling through our booking system as well. We know that bereavement support services in the community are amazing when you get into them, more often than not, but they are very patchy. Geographical access is limited, and very often are provided by volunteers. And certainly over the last couple of years, we know that people's time has been squeezed. Volunteer numbers have dropped. And this is added to the sort of significant waiting list problems that we've found really over the last few years. And we all know that access to any kind of therapeutic support via the NHS is problematic at the minute. And again, very patchy in terms of geography and waiting lists and so on. So we find a lot of people who would benefit from quick and easy access to some bereavement support, and maybe even longer term bereavement support. They find it really hard to get into services. Generally speaking, when you get into one, they're very good, but it's getting into services that tends to be the problem. And we've also seen, although I kind of push back quite hard on the idea that grief is an illness or anything that requires medicating as such, what we are seeing now is a move towards recognising that grief can lead to mental ill health. It isn't by itself a mental illness, and by de facto, most people who go through a significant bereavement do not go on to develop any kind of significant mental illness because of it. But certainly unsupported grief, complicated grief, disenfranchised grief can lead people down the road where maybe a depression or an anxiety problem can raise its head in the future. So while we kind of push back quite hard on the idea that grief is an illness, it's really not. If people aren't supported, if they don't get that little bit of extra help when they need it, sometimes they can go on to develop longer term problems. And that grief can impact every area of life. We see workplace absence, we see people who talk to us on GriefChat who say, I'm not the parent that I want to be, I'm not the person that I want to be, I'm not the partner that I want to be. So we know that grief impacts on every area of life. So what do we actually do? Essentially, we give people the opportunity to have a chat with a qualified, experienced bereavement counsellor to check out. They can bring whatever issue is on their mind at that time. It's very in the moment in that sense. So what GriefChat does quite often is something called the disinhibition effect, whereby because it's anonymous, because it's confidential, because it's online and you're not actually having to ring somebody up or see them face to face, people tell us what is on their mind instantly. So there's very little preamble, there's very little sort of, oh, how are you, blah, blah, blah. There's very little of that on GriefChat. We tend to find people come in and say, this has happened to me and I feel X or Y or Z, or I feel that like this because this has happened. Is this okay? Is this normal? Should I feel this way? Should I be doing something differently? And in lots of ways, that's what GriefChat is best placed to offer, that very immediate response to whatever is going on for a bereaved person at that moment. But all of our counsellors are qualified and very experienced bereavement counsellors, and we have specialists across the range of different, so it's a bit strange, different types of death, if you like. So we have some baby loss specialists, we have suicide specialists, we have longer term conditions specialists, we have people who've got really good in-depth knowledge of a range of different ways of being bereaved, really. And they're there as a team, individually and collectively, to give advice and support and that reassurance for people. And also when people visit us from various different websites, or come and say, you know, my person died from motor neuron disease, or my person had cancer and we've been through this journey through hospice, or my person died very suddenly in a road traffic accident, actually to have a look at what that means as that experience for that grieving person. And also be able to give appropriate information that is specific to that loss and how people are dealing with it. And we signpost a lot. We have an enormous database of information. We actually try and keep it very concise because we know that bereaved people are faced with vast amounts of information as they go through loss. But we also offer, where people are struggling to get into counselling, or they say, I don't want to wait, we can also offer longer term counselling as well through our team. What we also find with GriefChat that we didn't foresee when we went down this road was that we find, despite it being anonymous and confidential, from what people tell us, we can discern that more men use this service than would normally use other bereavement services. So hopefully by allowing men to have that privacy, that confidentiality, that anonymity when they come to chat to us, actually we're opening up a new route of access for men to access bereavement support that traditionally they haven't in the numbers that women certainly have. So as I said, we did the proof of concept in 2017. The idea literally popped out of my head when I was on a beach being pestered by a child. So I called up someone who used to work for me at Cruise and said, does anyone use web chat as a therapeutic tool? She said, no. I said, would you like to try? She said, yes. And away we went. So we piloted it very softly in 2018 and took 653 chats. We kind of launched properly in 2019 with a very small number of partners and a very tiny team. By 2020, we did 20,000 chats with obviously an increasing number of partnerships. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and the world went a little bit mad. So we did about 45,000 chats last year. And again, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And what's really good is that people can rate the chat. They can tell us whether it was good or bad. We get a ton of feedback very quickly from GriefChat customers who tell us, you know, that was really helpful. I'm so grateful that there's someone just there to chat to when I needed it. And essentially you can see this sort of graphic as a little pop-up box with two-way conversation. So what are the benefits? It sits on your website. Or if you don't want it to put on your website, you want to put it on your electronic invoices or your emails, then we can provide you with a direct chat link. So when people click on that, literally up pops a box where GriefChat counsellors are. Hopefully it takes the pressure off you guys to do all of that signposting work. As funeral directors, we know you know your communities well, and we know you know what's available in your communities. But essentially what you sometimes don't know is if you're sending people into a black hole, because quite often with community services, you're going to send people onto a wait list, or maybe there won't be a group running for 6 or 12 weeks or whatever it might be. So hopefully that takes some of the pressure off, is that there is somebody there instantly who can support your grieving clients. Hopefully it improves the confidence of your staff. We know you guys have been around a long time, you've been doing your job a long time, but maybe for the newer staff coming into funeral service, actually the confidence for them to be able to say, I can see you're having a really bad day. Did you know we've got a bereavement counsellor on our website 9 till 9, Monday to Friday? And hopefully that kind of helps those conversations where we know you get families come back time and time again, spend time with you, And we know that time is precious, that you actually have something else to offer them that is instant and in the moment and very responsive. So we hope in that sense it's good for your brand and it's good for your customer care, and it's also good that you actually then we can continue those conversations for you. And also separating those emotional needs from the kind of practicalities of we need to get on and actually organise this funeral. And the emotional support is part of that for sure, but it can't be open-ended forever. And we know you do your best with bereaved people, but at some point they leave your service and maybe look for something else. And one of the things that's really important to me is that no wait time. When I decide I need help, it's there. So with Much Loved, we sit on partner websites. So we would sit on your website as a funeral service. You would probably have a grief support page or a bereavement care page or a signpost into other useful organisations page. We would ask you don't put us right the way across your website, because otherwise we'll get inquiries about jobs and gravestones and all kinds of things, urns, and when we can pick up ashes and all the rest of it. So we would suggest that you clearly mark where GriefChat is and make sure people can find it easily enough, but it does sit on a specific bereavement or aftercare page. Obviously, if you wanted the direct chat link and you were sending out electronic communications, you can embed that into the electronic communication, which means that either you can send people back to a web page or you can send them straight to the chat box. So essentially it's your service, and you can even white label it if you want to. There is a charge for it, a small fee for it, but if you want it to look like your funeral service and it looks like part of your business, you can do that, but it's free to brand it up as GriefChat. At the minute, we've got about, I think there's a few more than this now actually, about 130 active partners, and we provide web chat, grief bereavement web chat for some of the big names that you will be well aware of. And we very happily keep winning nice awards, which is lovely. Unexpectedly won Best Bereavement Awareness 2022 in the Good Funeral Awards, and we've won a few other ones as well. And it's free of charge for you guys in that sense. You would be mad not to take it up. It's an extra string to your bow. It's an extra tool in the toolkit. And you get up to 250 chats a year, which for most independent funeral directors is plenty, because the trick actually is getting people back on your website. So unless you send it out to a direct chat link, whereas they can see it very clearly and they understand what it is, actually the trick is to get people to go back on your website and engage with it. So 250 chats is normally plenty. And for funeral businesses with more than 5 branches or who have multiple websites or multiple brands, you can pay a small monthly subscription, and that's normally in the realms of about 50 quid a month. We do charge for additional chats. It is a rare independent for sure that needs them. And we sit there again, like I said, best on a bereavement support or an about grief web page, but we can be on as many pages as you like. And the other question we often get asked is, how much is it going to cost me to install it, or how long is it going to take from a web guy to do it? And the answer is about 10 minutes, particularly if you've already got a bereavement care page. So we know you guys are going digital. I can't see this because my head's in the way. So the world's changing. Grief support is changing. Funeral care is changing. We are not going back from digital. I mean, certainly what we've seen in the counselling world is that move from face-to-face and group work to very much online. At least, I would say 40 to 50% of our counsellors now only work online. And I think that's a trend that we're going to see keeps progressing. Although it's nice to see people face-to-face, sometimes it's easier not to. And that certainly is the case in the world of therapy. So it's fast and it's effective and it's economical. And hopefully we help you guys to support your communities, to support those people who arrange funerals who are not in your communities, because you'll know that a lot of people who arrange funerals are not local these days. And so it gives you that alternative solution really. And this is kind of a couple of examples of how it looks on independent funeral directors. If you go on griefchat.co.uk/it's funeral services or funerals, have a look on the GriefChat page. There are loads of examples of GriefChat on independent funeral directors. Essentially, it is a little chat box at the bottom right-hand side of the page that will dynamically pop up after about 40 seconds and say, hello there, I'm a bereavement counsellor, would you like to chat to me? And then people say, yes, I would, or whatever it is, and away they go. There's no waiting around. And we also provide GriefChat for some of the bigger corporate funeral directors that you'll be familiar with as well. But essentially it's the same idea. It's a little box with a person, a real person behind it. What else can we offer? We do a lot of support and training. We do a lot of communicating with bereaved people training. We certainly do that on behalf of Much Loved. I would very definitely recommend that if you ever have the time or the inclination, or you have staff members that would like to come on that training, then I know that Much Loved send out at least twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, an invitation to come on some bereavement awareness training and communicating with bereaved people training. And we also offer that ourselves. We can give you literature, or we can give you information, or we can help you develop your own. You then have access, or your clients have access to our broader counsellor base. If people wanted ongoing face-to-face support and they weren't willing to pay for it or wait for it in the community, then they can access that. And we can give you, if you want them, statistics and trends as to who's using it and how it's being used. And you can co-brand it or white label it if you want to. And you can plug in our counselling booking system to your website. So if you know you've got customers who would want to book and pay for bereavement counselling and kind of get on with it with a professional counsellor, we can actually give you some code that will plug in a little counselling booking system, so that then those bookings come directly to us, and we look after the clients there as well. So that's all I want to share with you at the minute. I'll check the chat box.
Yeah, there were a couple of questions in there.
When you say more than 5 branches compared, so what I mean by that is, so this particular offer through Much Loved is mainly targeted at smaller independents. So the free offer anyway, because you might use more than 250 chats if you're bigger than that. So if you have more than 5 branches, then yes, you are still giving you 250 free chats for sure. But people with more than 5 branches, we tend to find either use more chats or need a small subscription fee, or want it white labelled, so there's a small subscription fee. But certainly talk to us about what that looks and feels like. And the other question is, yes, you do get straight through to a real person. The only automated messages we use on GriefChat is the first one that pops up and says, hello, I'm a bereavement counsellor. Or if for whatever reason, and it's very rare, there is a wait of a few seconds. After about a minute, it will pop up and say, a bereavement counsellor, it will be with you shortly. That tends to be when connections have gone haywire. So it doesn't happen very often because we're well resourced, and there is pretty much no waiting time to get through to a real person. And it's 250 chats per company. Again, we get a lot of anxiety over the numbers of chats, but generally speaking, even if you're doing 500 funerals a year, to get 500 families or clients to go back onto your website is a pretty big ask, which is why we've started to introduce things like the direct chat link, so that actually if you're sending out electronic invoices or emails, you can put it on your email footer for your company to say, did you know we have access to free bereavement counsellors, and you can put a direct chat link in there as well.
Catherine, that direct chat link in emails, can that go in regardless of what type of partnership funeral director has with you?
In what sense? So they have to have an
so if they're just,
partnership with Much Loved. So.
Yeah, if they're just using the free service, the extra sort of benefit through having a Much Loved Optimum service, can they still use that link in their email footer as well?
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would say at the moment, the stats that we get from the email footers or the direct chat links are not as good as the ones that we get from web pages, because when somebody comes on a web page, we can see which web page they're on, how long they're on there, that kind of thing, where they've come from. That we get a lot more data when people come from our web page, whereas if we come from a direct chat link, we just tend to know that people have arrived and how they've followed that chat link. But yeah, it works very well for people who essentially just cuts out the idea you've got to go to a website. So if you're on your mobile phone and you click the direct chat link from an email, it will literally just pop up. It will pop into your browser, but it will pop up the chat box instantly without having to navigate through anything else. So it can be a little bit more of a shortcut.
So to just put a chat box in the whole of if you're on your phone, it's just the whole of your browser.
Yeah, and it will say on there, it's got a GriefChat thing on there, it will say I'm a bereavement counsellor. So hopefully you will recognise what it is. It's pretty obvious what it is. So we've got a couple more in the box. Thank you. Able to offer telephone chats. We don't have a helpline as such, no, because we work on behalf of lots of other organisations who do have helplines. So if people wanted to have sessions, and they would be one-to-one sessions with a counsellor over the phone, they are payable. So we don't have a helpline as such. We lead with the web chat as our free offer, just because we know there are lots of other helplines out there, and we don't want to add to the mix of lots of time spent trying to man helplines that don't get answered. In fact, we prefer to put all of the resource into one helpline, so there was only one bereavement helpline that got answered. Oh yes, pet loss for sure. We work with the Blue Cross actually at the moment. We provide their web chat. So yes, we do support people who've lost pets, and I guess as a team of counsellors we are very, actually probably strangely animal focused, and for sure we would recognise that for a lot of people pets have enormous emotional significance, and for sure we would do that. Who to email to get the link? If you just email info@griefchat.co.uk, Karen, and we will send you a link over, so you can embed that into your emails, you can embed it into your invoices, you can embed it into your social media posts, and people will be able to just go straight on there.
And if anyone here wants to sign up as a result of this session, should we encourage them to get in touch with Much Loved and then on to you, or is it fine for them to get in touch directly with you?
More than welcome to get straight in touch with us, or get in touch with your account manager at Much Loved, and they will send a referral through for us, and we'll follow it up from there.
Perfect.
Thank you, Holly, that's very kind of you. But do by all means, the phone number is an office line, so if you won't get a counsellor, you'll probably get me if you're unlucky enough to ring that. But if you've got any questions, give us a call or just pop us an email, and we'll be more than happy to answer any other questions. Oh, thank you, Catherine. And that's our 10 o'clock, so I'm sure you've all got busy lives and jobs. Thank you very much for turning up today. I'll stop sharing my screen actually, that'd be a good idea. Not that I can see you. Well, thank you everybody, and thank you Sally for the invitation.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure having you on.
Get my northern drawl. First on a Tuesday morning, you lucky things.
Also means I don't have to prepare anything. That's probably too honest.
Good stuff.
Excellent, great. I'll stop recording actually.